You don't want to hear that this early in the morning. Good morning, guys online. I appreciate you being here. All
Morning,
right.
Paul.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
Why don't we
Hey,
start-
Julian, how you
Yeah.
feeling, buddy?
Yeah, that's where we need to start.
Making progress. This is week 2 of 10. So things are moving forward. Thank you. Thanks for asking, and thanks for the prayers.
Yeah. Well, you're quite welcome. I have been praying for you. Roy, thank you for coming. It looks like you're in the car, so.
I am in the car. I'm in the parking lot of the Daytona Airport.
All right.
So
Are you going to the race this weekend?
I went to the race last weekend, the 24-hour race.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'll be heading down to Vero Beach to meet my cousins later.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. So today's
Happy to.
Yeah. Today's meeting, what we're going to do is focus on the objectives that the strategies that we have approved by the Board of Supervisors, and we had assigned subcommittees to each strategy, and I think most of the subcommittees have met, and I have circulated reports from most of the subcommittees, along with some work that's in progress, so to speak. It's draft form, but it shows that the direction that we're heading. So if you would go back to my computer screen, Glenn. All right. So these are the major strategies that we identified. Broadband, creating a business-friendly environment, school system, housing market, recreation, and public education. And I think we have reports on every one of those major strategies. So I am going to start with Don to give us just a quick update on the first strategy on broadband.
Okay, I think this thing is on so that the folks online
Yeah,
can hear me. Okay. The Lancaster County and the Broadband Authority have entered into an agreement with Dominion Energy and a company called All Points Broadband, which will bring fiber broadband to every unserved home in Lancaster County now by the end of 2023. That timeline has been moved up 1 year. Because Dominion and All Points Broadband received a VATI grant in December, which will enable them to accelerate that timeline. Also, Atlantic Broadband, now called BreezeLine, is updating several of their existing lines in the county based on a prior VATI grant, and they're also upgrading some lines on their own. Because I've had several calls in the last 2 weeks from folks in the Manasquan area who have asked about they're seeing fiber on the side of the road, and BreezeLine is doing that on their own, upgrading it. So it's a lot of things happening as far as broadband is concerned, but we're on target to have every unserved location served by broadband, high-speed fiber by the end of 2023.
That's great.
Don, will that mean that we're one of the first rural counties in the state to be fully connected? How do we phrase it?
Well, I don't know how that breaks down exactly, but I think you're exactly right. I think we will be.
Yeah.
To Jimmy, just to add to Jimmy's question, expand on Jimmy's question, is there anything we're going to be, because this is just the underserved or non-served population, right?
It's all of the unserved locations in Lancaster County. It's about 2,700 homes.
So is there any extension that we can then say about the overall level of connectivity countywide? Because we got plenty of people that are already connected but seem to have less than adequate bandwidth,
Yeah.
maybe? So is there anything in that scenario where we can say more?
Well, I think BreezeLine, there's a previous VATI grant that BreezeLine is going to be updating their equipment in the eastern part of the county, some of those places that had spotty service. And as I said, they're doing some upgrades on their own now. What I think they see competition coming in with All Points Broadband, and so they're jumping, trying to beat the curve, I guess, and you know, do some upgrades on their own. Also, a piece to this is we have a wireless service that stemmed from the CARES project on the cell tower behind the sheriff's office, air joint venture with BTS to provide that wireless service to 300 homes within a 5-mile radius of that tower. In the meantime, BTS has purchased the old Signal Wave company and has upgraded their equipment. And I'm told that they are able to bounce the signal from this cell tower off of old Signal Wave towers that have now been upgraded and provide a reliable wireless service throughout the county. And as an example of that, you know, we put up these 8 smart poles around the county to provide free internet service with some CARES money a couple of years ago. They started out working on the cellular service, the SIM cards, and that service was very spotty. We've got one at our Greenville Creek boat ramp, which is a spotty location for cell service, and BTS has now converted all of these smart poles to their wireless broadband, and they were able to get service to that smart pole at the Thomas Landing site, which the cell service can't cover. So there's that option out there as well. And I'm told that folks that have gotten that wireless product are pretty satisfied with it.
That's good.
Is there any,
Don? Yeah. Go ahead, Julian.
I was going to ask, Don, is there any coordination at a senior level such that no one is overlooked and that there is in fact coverage throughout the county?
Yes, the Broadband Authority is making sure that happens. They're making sure that Dominion right now is laying the fiber, the middle mile down their transmission line, and All Points Broadband is going to be starting in April. They've got 2 deployment points, one in King George moving south, and one in Warsaw moving south to connect the last mile. But our Broadband Authority is watching over this project and making sure that nobody gets left out.
That is good. Excellent. Great.
Don, I have a quick comment or question on that, because Dominion's doing this underground project in different communities, and they're starting in my community. Is there any, and what I understand is that, like places where Dominion's lines are like commingled with Breeze lines now, that only like, they're just gonna underground the power lines and the Breeze line will stay on the poles. Is there any synergy that's working between those companies, or is there, while they're doing these underground projects, are they actually running Dominion fiber along with that, that will eventually potentially be competing against All Points or a Breeze line in a way, even though they be not right now, that's known that, I would assume that they're bringing these undergrounds that they're actually running fiber with it, but I don't know, but currently, say in Akron, there's already Breeze line, but they're doing these underground projects. I'm wondering if they're actually extending fiber as well.
I don't know the answer to that, Jason. The Broadband Authority has a meeting late this afternoon, and I'll bring that up when that happens. But
Because I think there's an impression that Dominion's going to do undergrounding and the poles and everything is going to completely disappear. But the reality is, I think everywhere there's a commingled effect with either telecommunications of some kind or internet, that those poles remain with just that line on it, and the power lines are the only part that go underground.
I think that's right, particularly in the Akron area, because Dominion in this project is laying fiber along their transmission lines, the middle mile. So I don't know that it would branch out down Akron. To me, that would be the last mile that All Points would be doing. So, but I'll bring that up this afternoon.
I'm just wondering, like, yeah, All Points is doing it, but Dominion's actually doing the contracting part, and I'm just assuming that while they're doing this, they're not just bearing a power line, that they're thinking about the future as well, but I don't know for sure, but
Yeah,
it's certainly worth inquiring about.
Yeah, and it
They
would
may not reveal it right now just because of the situation and the different grants and things they're working under and the rules, but I suspect that there's fiber going in the ground.
It would make sense.
One thing I'd like to add, because, and Susan, you brought this to mind. One of the things there's gonna be some responsibility on the residents, the citizens, to upgrade their service too. Because a lot of them, like myself, I got DSL, which, I hate it, but that's what I got. But I can get Atlanta broadband, because I've been talking to them for over a year. They just don't want to do what I want to do right now. But so it's going to be some responsibility on the citizens to get better service, that it's going to be available to them. They might be, running on something now that don't have the speed, but it's going to be up to them if they want to go to that next level. So it's going to be some responsibility. It's not just going to happen.
Well, in that regard, how much granular data can we collect on the different service providers at address locations and integrate that with our GIS? So somebody could go to, say, the GIS site and Google their address or look up their address and see what providers would be available. Is that something that's even possible?
That's another question that can be asked. Those providers hold that information
Up their sleeve?
pretty tight to the vest. But I mean, I think we would be able to provide what services were available, for sure.
Yeah, I think there's two disparate groups that we're talking about here. One, from the economic development standpoint, we had talked about as people moving in, and some of the homes were virtually unsaleable to some because they couldn't get high speed. And this is all awesome for that. The other part that I get concerned about is with the fiber to the last house in the county by the end of next year, what is the affordability factor? Are some of the folks that we're running fiber in front of barely can make a living? Do we have a program in place for scholarshiping, grants, or anything like that to help folks that are in poverty or close to poverty?
Well, the Broadband Authority is looking at just that thing right now. The CARES Act program that the county was in conjunction with BTS, their monthly fee was $50 per month, and that guaranteed 25/3 speeds. I'm told that All Points Broadband's lowest priced plan would be $59.99 per month. But I'm not positive of that. But the Broadband Authority is looking at ways to make it more affordable for those people who would need it.
Some of
Okay.
it too is a marketing thing, so an individual family, they need to kind of look at what their services currently are, because maybe they're paying for like TV and telephone and other things that they're paying a higher fee for, that they can reduce down to, say, just high-speed internet and get all those services for, say, the minimum price of $60. And so that's a little bit of marketing and education piece too that goes along with.
Yeah, a lot of education in that, Jason, that for folks to combine all those services and get it through their.
Yep.
Paul, just a couple of thoughts. I think for the purpose of this committee, our concern was uncovered areas with broadband.
Right.
And I think the Board of Supervisors has done a good job with the Broadband Authority, and we're getting that itch scratched. I think the granularity of all this other stuff, we should leave with the Broadband Authority.
Exactly,
It's not
yeah.
an under, or, we're just trying to get the macro level done. But I do think, we've heard said so many years, oh, we don't have broadband. I think from a messaging perspective, we should get out that message that everything's gonna be covered by 2023, by the end of 2023, and make sure people know that, because it's gonna be hard to change public opinion.
And I also think in that return, like getting the realtors up to speed, because they're the ones that really know the particular neighborhoods and where they're selling and stuff, so they can go in and be ambassador marketers too as well. And while they're selling us, we're like, well, this area is fully covered with fiber, and we're expanding out to other areas, or this neighborhood's gonna have fiber by this date.
That's part of our messaging committee.
Right.
That should be one
Yes.
of our bullet points. that we
Yeah,
cover.
and, yeah.
Just to ask Don, just a tactical question to solve that for us in the communications piece. Does the Broadband Authority have like a really great overlay map of the county that shows fully served, underserved, to be served? What are we going to look like in 2023? Is there just a generic map that kind of shows
I can answer that question.
that piece of it?
Someone has one in this county, because I know who's being served school division wise and who needs hotspots. And so,
Okay.
so there is some, and Kevin's part of that, so. So the answer to that has to be yes.
It's somewhere. I just think for us in communications, that would be a really awesome tool to have. It wouldn't have to be at the street level or the 911 level, but generically speaking, Akron's going to be covered, or is covered today, or this area will be covered.
They have that information, and
They broadband?
yeah,
Okay.
they maintain their own website. Now, whether that's actually on there, I can't answer that, but, and they have incredibly smart people on that authority, very, technically inclined. They can create.
Better than us, then? Is it possible?
All right. Okay, any,
Better than Glenn?
yeah.
It's not possible.
No, I mean, he's part of it.
Okay. Oh, that's the brain trust in the county right
Paul?
Gary Silverman can create it if
there. You're right on that.
Paul?
Thank you, that's
Okay.
great. We can use that.
Yeah, Julian's got a question.
Well, no, actually, just a quick question too. I guess I'm in full agreement with what I believe I've heard Jeff say, that the committee's responsibility is to be fully informed of what sort of progress is being made and what the ultimate goal is going to look like, and to message that as part of our overall package. But we don't have any other responsibilities here, right?
I don't think so, no. Yeah, we just want to make sure it's there for economic development, home sales, economic development, people wanting to come down here to work and need online connections, high speed, to do their work. Yeah, that was our main purpose, right. I can, hopefully we'll never get into a lockdown situation again where there's virtual learning from the home, and people like in the banks in my situation had to work remotely because actually we had two people in our office that did not have accessibility and couldn't work remotely. So they ended up at the office every day for the last 2 years. But we needed people in the office, so that worked out well. Let's take another look. Are we okay with broadband? Yeah, we're good, and it's awesome work, and the Broadband Authority is doing an awesome job, and I'm really excited about that.
Paul?
Yes.
Paul, I do have just one question of, Don mentioned by the end of 2023 that 2,700 homes in Lancaster County. Now, if you just take a population of 2 people per home, that's half our population. That's 5,400 people.
Yeah.
I think that sounds fabulous that we're going to get, half our population, it sounds like, is underserved now,
I think
based
you're
by
about
the
right.
numbers.
Some of those will be second homes though, right, Don?
Yeah, some of them,
They're not part of our 10,000 residents.
Yeah, some of them are second homes. Most of these unserved are in districts 1 and 2, obviously, because districts 3, 4, and 5 have coverage. It may be spotty in spots, but yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So from this area, east and north. Well, west and north, excuse me, west and north.
West and north, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The next item on the strategies screen was creating a business-friendly environment and job creation, and public partnerships, public-private partnerships, tax incentives. And Julian and Roy, I've handed out a piece of paper on this that you do not have, but I will email to you all these attachments that I've sent out that we have. And all it does is describe the content of the meeting, some of the items that were discussed. We did discuss the hiring at that meeting. You should have that form in front of you. The hiring of an economic development director, which is already part of the county existing budget. I did contact Susan, and Susan was supposed to get up with Don about helping with a job description on that. I don't know if that's occurred yet.
It has not.
But we need to do that. I actually have someone who may be interested in the position if it's less than full-time. And she may be excellent for it, actually. Excellent. And we talked about some of the things that needed to be accomplished, that they could be helping us through the strategic planning process right now. And that's creating an inventory of catalog. I call it a catalog of community resources, explaining existing business-friendly benefits such as enterprise zones, business parks, any properties that may be, business properties that may be for sale, marketing. We talk about a vibrant website, social media. And they could also be of assistance with us in trying to put the final phases of this strategic plan together. And so that's supposed to happen soon, and I hope that we can get that in place. We also discussed the need to ask new residents why they came to the county, what they like about it, what they dislike, what it'll take to keep them here. So one of our new committee members, guys, especially online, because it's here in hard copy but not with you, is Lisa Mclaughlin has agreed to serve on this committee. And Roy will tell you she's newly appointed on the EDA, and she's loaded with energy. And she has two children in the first and the second grade. She's agreed to chair the focus groups that we'd like to create. In fact, the first focus group is going to be held tomorrow at noon. It includes 8 residents that have come into the county in the last 24 months. And we have a focus group next Thursday at 5:30 in the evening of residents that have been here 15 years or less. The idea, and if that's something like you'd like to join in, Don, or Dan or your wife, please, we'd like to have you there. What we're trying to ask folks is why they came here, what they have found that they like about the county, what they dislike about the county, what are some of the things they're missing, right? And what, we're going to ask what it's going to take to keep them here long term. Because some of the folks have come down for the pandemic and have said, you know what, after a few years, things settle down, we may want to go back home for a various number of reasons. So we wanted to first interview that group that just came down during the pandemic, and find out what their position is on everything. So that is scheduled for noon tomorrow. And like I said, the other one, we want to ask a similar set of questions to folks that have been down here 10, 15 years and said, you've been here a while now. What do you really enjoy about the county? What are some of the things that that bug you about, things you dislike? What things can this county or its business population provide you that would make your life better here? And so that is, Lisa and I have drawn up a list of questions for these focus groups, and at the next meeting, we'll be able to report back on some of that. But Lisa is also, we're also talking about 3 or 4 different other focus groups, maybe as we come along and we can get some other people's opinions to also begin scheduling those.
I got a question.
Yes.
How did you go about selecting these people to interview?
It was Lisa put it out on public media, on her Facebook page and through some contacts. So I know where you're going, and we need to reach a broader audience. I really don't know at this time how to reach that entire broad audience other than through social media and people knowing people. And so if anyone has any thoughts on that, I'm really happy.
Yeah, I think the discussion around that bill was there are obviously a lot of segments in the vein that it's easier to retain than it is to attract. as far as this surge of people who have moved here for the pandemic, let's, like, as a first order of business, see what we can do, rather than what we think we need to do to retain them, ask them what do they want to retain, but that's only one segment. That's like the baby step of trying to start with what we know. We also had discussion on having some meetings with the trade groups, like with the carpenters, the plumbers, those that are retiring, that there's no one to backfill their vocation. We need to talk to them about what it would take from, just sort of brainstorming from a jobs perspective to backfill like apprenticeships or something. So 5 years from now, we're not in a position where we don't have any dentists, or we're not in a position where we don't have enough plumbers or carpenters or whatever tradesmen. But that's a separate group. So this is just an initial foray into that subpopulation.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, I understand what you're saying, certainly, but I guess my question is different from, what you're talking about. Because when you are creating a focus group for the county to talk about, okay, why are you here, and things like that, and we only selecting a finite group of people that or I know, or something like that, then you're not getting the full picture of why people move here. So it's very important, I think, that these focus groups going forward, it represent, the people that actually moved in here in the last 10 or 15 years, which is not people that Paul know or you just know or something like that. It's a lot of people moved in this area that you all don't come in contact with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
And we want to reach them, Bill. We want to have as many focus groups as we can possibly garner from, get different public
I
input.
think I can help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if
That's an excellent way.
Dan can help with that, that's really good because, but you only know the population that's come with children. So,
Wait a minute,
yeah.
if I understand correctly, in my mind, the 20 to 40-year-olds with families
Is our target.
That's your
Right.
group.
So
Yeah,
for me, that is our target group, and one of the things, and I do agree with Mr. Lee on this, we have a bunch of, the projections of our student population was to be less than 850 now. We're still at 1,000. So we have families doubled up in houses. So to reach that group to say, what can we do? Well, first of all, I think we already know what the answer is. It's kind of interesting that this is going full circle, but there needs to be affordable housing for these folks. But that's how we're going to keep them. But I do agree that they probably should have a voice because they're the ones that I understand this group is trying to target, which are the 20 to 40-year-olds with families.
right.
Paul, I think though, just to help process-wise, to Bill's point, I think if in these initial focus groups, there's a methodology that captures what the demographic of that group is. So it's okay to have a focus group of people who just moved here in 3 years, who have an income of X, and it's okay to have another focus group who came here 15 years ago with income of Y, or who have children who don't have children. I just think in terms of Lisa's approach, as long as she's grabbing representative demographics of who we're talking to, then we can put the puzzle pieces together to make sure that we've covered the broad viewpoint.
Right, yeah, and we've talked about that, and part of our questions are some on demographics. Yeah, so that we can get some of that background. But I understand where you're coming from, Bill. I didn't think about Dan and his ability to extract a lot of that data for us.
We can
Yeah.
just invite the families to participate.
Right,
And
you're right.
we had probably 4 new enrollments this week.
Sweet,
Did you really? Wow.
We're moving them with families, so.
good,
I mean,
good,
But they're double and triple in a house because there's no housing.
right.
Are those people who are moving in with
Jimmy
their
saw that.
parents and
Moving in with
grandchildren?
Their parents.
And grandchildren?
Grandparents, yes.
So really,
Bill,
that
that they would
retired
come.
demographic is
Bill, that they
important
would
to
come.
know too, because they're like the first base for some of these
Working in
younger
business.
families.
Yes.
Up
So
there in
it
Fredericksburg,
probably
can't
takes
build them fast
a
enough.
good representative group, but
As soon as they build them,
it's
they're
good
sold.
news.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
There's no housing.
And Paul, I met with Lisa and she was terrific. I had a 2-hour meeting with her, and she also brought Trish Matthews with her, who bought Remember that house, as you go across Carter's Creek to the left, the one that Cross Saunders built years ago, that big house? The woman she and her husband lived there also came. She's a big real estate developer, a major real estate developer, young, bright, and she wants to lean in and help too. So
Yeah.
I met with the two of them and gave them the overview of the economy and that sort of stuff.
Good, good. Lisa told me that you did.
But Paul, to
Yes.
Bill's point, we could use this committee's help with brainstorming what other demographic groups don't we have and how to approach them.
Right,
Right.
yes. Yeah, we definitely need help with that.
I
And
think
so,
this is excellent, Paul. To Bill's original comment, the service category of people that we have, those people who are working in all the kitchens and doing all of the first and second level of labor, those people are key to making the whole thing work. And so putting them in as a category for Lisa and her team, I think is going to be important. But great discussion that this focus group has to be cross-sectional, no question.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. We're not stopping with one or two, where we want to have multiple and try to continue to reach different demographics with them. Okay? The one thing in common is we want newer people. We want to get their opinion here, because we're trying to increase a population in a certain age group. So we need to know what's attractive to them about the county and what we can do to improve things that are not. We also talked about, halfway down the page, we discussed the types of positions that we thought were desirable for us at the time, and that's the work at home, the retail, small businesses with under 10 employees, small tech companies. We also discussed workforce development as it relates to trades such as plumbers, electricians, carpenters, mechanical. Discussion is how can we attract and entice them to the area? I know Lisa had some comments to me about, and someone else, I think, at the meeting, I don't remember who, regarding like some of the high ends in the District of Columbia or around Northern Virginia, that the tradespeople that can't afford to live there are also coming from more affordable communities 20, 30 miles out. And so the comment was, well, what if they were able to live and work and make a good living in the community where they live? So is there a way, and that's outlined here, what would it take to attract from other communities those types of skilled work? But also plumbers, electricians, carpenters, mechanical. We have a great trade school up in Warsaw. The issue is that a lot of kids don't go to that school, and then they come out 1, 2, 3 years later without any work direction. What would it take for our community? This is just questions that we're posing to start an apprentice program here, tech school, for these postgraduates that would like to learn a trade. We talked about discussing with Rappahannock Community College how we could all plug into that, how and maybe different carpenters or plumbers, electricians that we have may want to take people on as apprentices in their trades, as long as they knew they were getting some formal education through RCC or through other means. Those are all critical needs in this area right now. You try to get a plumber, electrician, and see how long it takes you. And then lastly, and Jeff touched on it, we also need to look at professionals in healthcare, such as dentists and doctors. How can we assist in helping retiring professionals to sell their practice? We talked about the dentists quite a bit. And maybe the economic development director can market those positions if we had one in place. That such and such dentist with practice of X revenue and so many patients is looking to retire, that kind of thing. or looking at young dentists with doctors and dentists that are 5 to 10 years away from retirement, with the idea of that person, taking on that person with the idea that they'll assume their practice when they retire. So those were some of the thoughts that we're developing with this committee. And we are open to other suggestions, other ways and avenues to go with this. We did not talk about tax incentives at this point in time. We thought that was premature. But what do y'all think? What's your thoughts, comments, other than on the
I mean, I think that's a good plan. We need to, I think, in general, do, in public education, spend more time having synergy with the business community around what jobs are being created, not just sort of a liberal arts education anymore. We need to just not send kids off to the tech school, but develop partnerships with the businesses here. So part of the work-study program, instead of going up there for credit, they go out and work in the work field, or work in the bank, or work in the business somewhere, whatever fields they're interested in. They actually go out and physically work in those fields in high school and get high school credit for it in some way. And the ways that we can build those types of relationships out more and get away from the current types of education we're doing that is a total failure and not working, and the evidence is piling up for that it's not working because of the shortages in teachers and all the different things areas are going on in education is because it doesn't match up. The current style of education doesn't match up with the realities in the world today.
I mean, it's funny, Jason, you mentioned that. On my strategic plan, I have an element of trying to do that with the school system because workforce, so I don't have to keep exporting jobs to Williamsburg and Richmond. I have that on my exact thing on my strategic plan. I need to find workers here, and to the extent we can groom them out of the school system, that we don't have to get them to move here,
And
it makes it
we
all
actually
that
just-
much better.
And they're already doing that for teachers.
We just placed, we have a new administrator, or not new, but a new role where she's taking over leading the preschool, but she also has a background in internships and community-based. And our goal after we get the preschool up is to reach out to the businesses and start internships and placement of students. So it's all gonna fall kinda in line with where it is, so we'll be happy to do that.
My church is sort of looking at something that, I mean, on a totally parallel path, but there was a program in Hopewell that did this. It's Carolyn Young's brother ran this program in Hopewell for about 15 years. So there's a model of how the school system had the internships, and the businesses paid for those kids, especially gave them summer jobs, and then would give them part-time jobs during the school year to the extent they could. But we're going to get her brother to come in and just say, here's how it worked for us.
Yeah. Good. Well, and that, maybe is part of what you can provide to us to incorporate into the strategic plan too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Any more discussion on this topic right now?
Well, if I may add,
Sure.
my hopes are that through this, we develop a marketing plan that's just not the school division trying to market. And that's, when you're talking about getting people from Richmond, it's an hour away. Do we have something that sells our connectivity in our nice community where there are commercials in that community that may entice families to move here and drive that hour?
Paul, I have
Yeah.
thoughts on that. I think, I already wrote my notes just for, as we close this meeting, referrals between committees. I think this group's job is to tie together each of these subcommittees well. Like Dan's already mentioned, housing. So there's obviously a school system connection with the housing committee. You mentioned we need help marketing. That's school system and broadband's responsibility to go through our communication committee. I think this group is the clearinghouse to make sure we get all the information up and we get it, the groups working well together. But let the groups do their job.
I think along with the communication marketing piece too, the school system does that newsletter that y'all been doing, that quarterly sort of newsletter. If the county or this committee or something did something along those lines to publicize what we're doing and what's going on here and the opportunities that are here or in the future going to be available here, that could go a long way to
We actually have I don't know if it's a commercial, a preview for before every movie at Compass right now that has a little commercial for us as well, so.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if you see what we've passed out, one of the samples here today, we're gonna try to highlight each school with like 3 major programs or things we're doing. So we're trying everything we can do to rewrite the narrative and to sell the positive story, but I don't think that alone is gonna help, so.
Right.
And I understand the committee, but just my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
I think, yeah. Well, that's a good lead-in. Why don't we talk about education next, then? That was one of the other objectives, having a vibrant school system. And Dan and I have met. I've got a couple of notes on that, and Dan's got a handout that I'm going to let him explain. You know, I talk about perception and reality here in the second line of the notes that I wrote. The school system plays a vital role in our economic development and building up this age demographic. You should have a page that has education and public relations and communications on it. I distributed, okay? It's just a few notes. Perception has become a reality with many people that the school system needs improvement. While working on new schools, graduation rates, accreditation, et cetera, the system must publicize and promote all its successes. That's exactly what we were talking about. Dan has started these quarterly items. There's also an enclosure that he provided that you have right there.
Where does the quarterly items go to?
It's supposed to be mailed to every resident in the county.
Every resident in the county, okay.
Yes, and businesses, and we send an electronic copy to the Chamber of Commerce, so it should go out.
We need to
and
get on your
we
mail
post
list,
it
because
on
we're not getting it at the town hall.
Well,
We don't see it.
I didn't get one either, so I had to
Oh,
talk
well,
to the
you got a
company.
problem
So it's actually through the post office, we're working with that, but it's kind of sporadic.
Gotcha.
But
All right,
if
thanks.
anyone needs copies, we have them at the school board office.
Yeah, we actually have a couple at our office in the
Well, that's what
waiting
I'm
rooms
thinking.
at
I'm thinking
work,
when the
yeah.
general public walks in, and if we had them, that would be great.
Absolutely,
That's a sidebar, we'll take care of it.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. You know, and when I talk about, you know, developing this economic development website, maybe some items like this, like the item that Dan just passed around, ought to be part of it, and then maybe it should have hot links directly to the school system, you know, and that kind of thing.
We have those on our website. We have the chamber link on there. We also have the towns who have websites. You can go right on so if we have a parent exploring our school division, they can actually see the websites of the community, so.
Lynn, do we have links to the school websites on our website?
Yeah. And so, you know, what I see with some of this is getting the word out, trying to change the you know, the mindset of some of the folks, talking about the successes, like the governor's school, I think, is one of the greatest things that we have in our entire, you know, state. The early college, dual enrollment systems, you know, the trade schools that are available for folks that don't want to, or kids that don't want to go on to college.
Last year, we surpassed West Point, who's the #1 school division in the state for students participating in dual enrollment, the number of credit hours they earn.
Did you really?
We
That's
did.
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
It made a little back section of the newspaper, but we actually, we were. So what we're trying to do is just rewrite the narrative. I mean, everybody has issues, but there are a lot more positive things going on. It seems like
Yeah.
we just need to rewrite that story.
And I agree with that, and a lot of that's gonna be too marketing in the right place with social media and things, and in order to do that properly, you need to have like dedication to it, and then basically put the resources behind it, so you're posting and writing those positive stories daily, hourly, almost, all the time, and releasing that information and basically flooding
All
the
channels.
airways with positivity stuff, and leaving little room for the negative stuff to get
Yeah.
printed, instead of that stuff squeezes its way to the back
If you give them
pages.
3 good things to talk about, and I think I'm stealing from Julian on this, he talks about advertising in threes. I've learned from him. if we give them 3 good things to talk about, they won't be talking about the negative, or one negative perception that they really have no connection to, so we're trying to advertise in 3s if we can, we're trying to just rewrite the story, give them something positive to talk
Yeah.
about.
And we got a lot of stuff positive. We're not only talking about the education with these programs, but also the new schools. We now have a site that's been purchased. We have this new early childhood development center, which is in partnership with the YMCA, which is pretty unique, and we probably ought to be trying to advertise and talk about that and how that structure is going to work, and what is that opening up for the fall?
Yes, should be the fall.
Yeah.
Dan,
and-
are you planning like essentially a grand opening for that facility?
We are, actually, and we hope to have open houses for different groups, contributors to it. Obviously, the boards of each school board, board of supervisors, and then open up to the teachers and the community and the parents, so.
Dan gave me a personal tour.
Yeah, I haven't made it over there yet, but
It's fabulous. I think the citizens is gonna be very proud of that facility. What we knew as the old library, I mean, it's been transformed.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful place for young kids to go and learn. They got it, everything is even down to the painting and everything like that is done top level, so.
That was done by Connemara too, so
Yeah, so
it's nice to have local involvement in that.
We got something very,
Right.
very proud of there, and it's going, and we need to promote it.
yeah, exactly. We need to make sure that we do the
Yeah.
correct marketing.
Yeah, and David is really good about, he did that project. He'll give you some marketing money too, if you ask him, to help with that, and marketing, promoting. But that's just it, just the coordinated effort, changing the perceptions. We all have a role in that. The strategic plan has a role in that. And of course, there are some things that we need to work on. We know that, graduation rates, continue to work on accreditations and things like that. But but if we want to attract people in here, we got to tell them what we're doing about those things that need work, but we also got to promote all our wins.
And to that regard, we need to expand out, and when we break ground, we need to bring in the big players as much as we can to showcase these types of things that we're doing. So as we talk about the grand openings, we should be inviting the governor and the secretary of education and those people down here so they can bring the fanfare down here as we demonstrate, hey, we're a county that's really focusing on pre-K education. We are behind it 100%, and we're opening this brand new wonderful facility. And come look at us. We're a model for what needs to happen across the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Well, the previous governor's wife and the Secretary of Education did tour the building. And they said, apply for this HVAC grant, and 3 weeks later, we got an extra $200,000 to help with the HVAC. So that was pretty amazing, so.
That's how it works.
And we need to make sure that those things are always happening, and all those players are always being invited to
Absolutely.
these things as much as possible, and twisting their arms to get them down here and bring the cameras with them, not just come down here and quiet.
Dandy, just to Jason's very point, is there, and I just made a note here because it fits in with our communications team. This is an overreaching statement, but I'm just going to ask it. Do you have resources at your disposal that could effectively act as your PR firm or your PR team? Or is that something collectively we need to find that would help? Because PR is all about consistent drumbeat of the positive. And if you don't have a resource, you got a resource, I got some resources. If you don't have them, it's hit or miss. And so if you don't have resources,
I will
maybe
say
we should
this,
find some.
I think we have resources, but they're limited. So if there's anyone else that has additional availability, we're learning as we go.
Sure, I get that.
So the answer is, what you're seeing is ground level done by a few
Yeah, it's
of
perfect,
us.
and it's good. It's good stuff.
But we also probably need to help to take the next step forward.
Okay.
If you have the resources or anyone, or, we take advice well, I think, as we learn.
I just think
so.
that might be something that this group could help with, because if you're not if you don't know what the message not that you don't know, but if there's an unstated message, or we got message A today and message B tomorrow and message C 3 days from now, that's hard for the audience to get that steady drumbeat of positive news. There's some things, I know you, I mean, Paula Milstead does a fabulous job for the bank, but it's all about knowing what the message is going to be and the consistency of delivering it. And you may not even have a dedicated resource for that. If you don't, I think in the short term, we need to help try to fill that gap for you. Because this is a critical time to be saying all the positive stuff. And
Well, my hopes are, and maybe, my hopes are that the economic development person that we hired, or my hopes were, that this person would also come in and develop a plan for the whole county. And the school division will be a part of that. So we're feeding that person, we're getting direction on
and
what
I
to
think
do.
you will be, but what I'm hearing is we have immediate opportunity today
Absolutely.
with what is the media that we're putting out, and how is it getting out, and is it getting out consistently, so we can draw in the governor or Whitman's office, et cetera, with a bigger splash.
Well, this is a prime
yeah.
target to hit right now, because the state's really been focusing on early childhood
Right.
education, and this, to me, is a model project for that, and a model program for that, and so we need to take advantage of this opportunity that's on the table right before us now, and find a way when we do this groundbreaking to get those key players down here. And it's gonna be good for business, because Conemaira is gonna be able to sit on that stage and say, hey, we were the builder. The school system players can stand on the stage and say, hey, we're the brains behind this project, and the politicians can stand on the stage and say, hey, we're the guys standing up there funding these types of things in Richmond and believing in them. And so everyone gets to win, and it's a good splash, and everybody's down here, and then people see that
It's a
and say, oh,
tremendous feel-good
hey,
story.
well, we want to go down there because they're doing great things.
Yeah.
Plus, we have the underserved rural county in our
Yeah.
corner too. I mean, we've got a lot of
Right.
ways to get attention to it.
Yeah, yeah. So some exciting things. I think we're on track there. The other part that's in our notes that we haven't talked about for you two guys remotely is that the school system is going to be updating their strategic plan, and some relevant content out of that will be able to use in the county strategic plan. And I don't know if you've got a timetable set up for that yet, Dan.
Spoke with the school board, I believe, early to late May, they're gonna start. It's a lengthy process, obviously, and then there'll be stakeholders involved. I just took some quick notes of some things we talked about, are obviously improved facilities, competitive salary for not just teachers, but also all staff, marketing to inform and rewrite the narrative, and just the fact that they're actually going to be getting together to do a strategic plan. So I think all these things together will be a good thing. So.
Good. All right, any other comments before we move on to our other next strategy? So, Glenn, could you put up the strategies again? Let's take a look at Mr. Carter and what he's going to talk about regarding the housing market, because that is something that, it's a circle. All these things have to work simultaneously.
And I'll just sort of give you a high sign when we're ready to flip okay? Good.
Jimmy, you had to embarrass us all with a big PowerPoint
Yeah.
presentation.
Is this death
Well,
by
this was the one
PowerPoint?
I tried to give the committee the other day that I messed up on.
All right.
So, let's see. So we got,
There's a unicorn getting ready to jump out of his PC here.
He's got to celebrate this week, he just closed on that.
I know.
do we have,
Yeah, he's spending your money.
oh, here we go.
No, he's spending our money.
All right, guys.
He's spending our money.
Yeah. So, okay, enough of that.
Okay, are you two on remote? Can you see this?
Yes, hearing
awesome.
is a bit of a problem, though.
Yeah. So our mission, the housing committee was, how can
Yes,
housing
we have
improve our economy? All right, Glenn. And so we've broken down the agenda into defining what workforce housing is, identifying workforce housing challenges, identifying solutions and next steps. Okay, Glenn. And so So there, all right, we can go to the next one, Glenn. So when we start talking about workforce housing, what we want to make clear is that there are two types of housing that sort of, when we think about affordable housing is housing that residents are dependent on government subsidies for housing and for shelter. And we're clear that that's an important issue, but it's not the focus of this committee. What we're trying to figure out is what's that nexus between housing and the economy. We're not in any way downplaying the importance of workforce affordable housing, but we're looking at workforce housing, and so it's a little bit different. Next slide, Glenn. So the research says that affordable housing are for families that are below 60% of median income, but workforce housing is for people between 61% and 120% of median income, and with housing costs of no more than 30 and 40% of income. That's what the data says workforce housing is. Next slide. In 2019, we had a population of just around 10,000, median age 57, and median income of 53. That's just information that we're trying to start to compile. Next one, Glenn. You know, a lot of times when we thought about workforce housing, it was like the Mercer project. You know, it's more than just teachers and police officers and firefighters. It's next one, Glenn. It's really, we're trying to figure out how we also include young workers. Julian alluded to that earlier when he was talking about, he said we got to really look at these people that are coming in to do real work, not just rich people retiring in because they want to work from home. And so that's really what the focus, a lot of this focus is trying to figure out how can we help these young professional workers in construction, retail, office workers, service workers. Next slide. So we're saying that our definition for this committee, that our definition of workforce housing is housing that's affordable to workers, close to their jobs. If it's ownership, it can be ownership or rental, and it needs to be reasonably affordable for the critical workforce we're trying to attract, and located in acceptable proximity to quality of life and services. So, does that sort of sound right to everybody, or that's sort of what our definition of workforce housing should be? Yes. Okay.
Good.
All right. Next slide, Glenn. So when we start identifying the challenges, next slide. We know that that rural is under a lot of pressures, you know. And this is just general information. We know that we're getting older, that rural's getting older, and more and more people living alone. But that's really not our focus. But it's just anecdotal information that's in there. Next slide. This slide I find interesting. I'm used to seeing MSA, metropolitan statistical areas, but now there's a new thing called micropolitan statistical areas and then non-metropolitan. So you can see what's going on. Our area is really, what I like about this slide is it really points out all the growth pressures around us that are going to be impacting us over the future years. We're really just an infill location, and when you really take that Eastern Virginia up there where we are in green, you know, I think what we feel is that in those rural counties that are not connected to an urban area, they're really rural by definition, that we're the most advantaged market in Eastern Virginia. If something's going to happen, it should happen here first. So I think that this graph really points out how well positioned we are and the types of things that are going to be happening here over, you know, in the future. That we're really the next county to sort of pop in rural, I believe. Everybody sort of, I think we're all sort of on the same page with that, aren't we? Yeah. All right, next slide. This slide was interesting to me. This was just, there's a housing study that I'm going to show you in a minute. This was, the General Assembly just put out a housing study, and I pulled this out of the housing study. So we're in that third section, obviously, in the Eastern. It says that the median house in our region is $188,000. When you look at the other rural areas, that puts us the second most expensive rural market in Virginia. The only one that's more expensive to us is Northwest. I'm assuming that's northwest of DC, I mean, up in that area, where they're more expensive. But I think it's interesting for us to know that part of our housing problem is that comparatively, we're more expensive than most rural areas. So just a background information for us. Next slide, Glenn. This slide was particularly interesting, I thought. They do something called the Housing Community Affordability Index. And this sort of has to do with the availability of housing and the cost of housing. And this says that we're in the top two. We're the second most negative market in Virginia for affordability and availability of housing. So I think that's, when Jeff was talking about earlier about the types of things that set us up for potential focus on the state and federal level for grants and those types of things, I think this will be an important slide for us because it really points out that we really have a serious problem here compared to other rural areas, that our housing is very little of it, and what's available is tremendously expensive, and we know that that's been exacerbated over the last 2 years as people have moved here for COVID, that it's nearly impossible to find anything to rent or to buy. So this slide really shows that. I was sort of surprised by that I had no idea.
So Jimmy, if you were to slide that little bar to the right more toward poor,
Yeah,
those two would vanish and no other ones would pop up?
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we've got some of the most critical housing problems in rural Virginia in terms of demand versus cost and
And what is
availability.
Northampton, is that showing?
Northampton's the other one, that's right.
But I mean, is that really surprising to anyone?
Well, see, that's what I'm sitting here thinking. I said,
We
that don't
had
surprise me.
Mercer
Yeah.
Place for teachers.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was like out west,
Yeah,
but I think it's important to see that on a
It
state
is.
level.
It
It
is. It is.
surprises me. I mean, because
Yeah.
I thought the rural plight was sort of
But if you
universal.
go back one slide to your median income,
Yeah,
if you just go back and look at that for Eastern Virginia, and I know that's not Lancaster County, but if you look at the rural median at 188,000,
that's
We don't
the
have
cost of housing, yeah.
I understand, but we don't have any inventory hardly at that price.
That's
Our
right.
inventory is well above that, so I'm surprised we're not even further to the poor side, because I think that little piece of data says that for Lancaster County, you know, our pricing, our housing affordability is well above that scenario of
Right.
Eastern Virginia.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, when my wife and when I moved here 8 years ago, we looked at a house similar to what price range we had in Culpeper, which was 350, 400. There were very few in that
Yeah.
price range. I mean, and that's expensive. That's for medium income.
That's right,
I mean, it really is. That was with equity in a home in order to transfer some in.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just not there, but, and I wasn't trying to be smart, but working with the school division, we struggle to find, I mean, there are a lot of things said about teacher turnover, but we struggle finding places for them to live. Mercer Place is great to start, but, you know, if you bring your significant other down, you wanna live out a little, I mean, there's just the housing is just not here, so
That's a
for me, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
It's, you know, if you renting a property, because Dan know I'm renting a property to a teacher that he had, and then that teacher decide they gonna move to another school division. So I'm getting a call saying, hey, you gonna have, the house is become available because she's moving. Well, I got talked to the renter, she said, I'm not moving. I can't find a house in the other division. So she's commuting every day out of Lancaster County to teach over in another division because she couldn't find a house over there. So it's a problem, so it really don't surprise me, and the price don't.
I don't think you could build houses. I don't think
No,
you can build
here's
workfloor
the
houses for $188,000
I just pulled this out of a study that the General Assembly just did that I'm gonna allude to in a minute. I don't know what the background is for arriving at these numbers, but I think I would say, don't look at the numbers so much, just look at the relativity, whatever they're using. We can see that we're an expensive rural market right now because we don't have affordable housing.
Hey,
And
Jimmy,
Virginia could
is it
include
fair to
Eastern
say,
Shore.
yeah, is it fair to say that this study was conducted pre-COVID too, and there's been,
It just literally came out 2 weeks ago.
so
Paul.
what are the study
It was
dates?
2020.
I don't know.
No, it was 2020. You had it on your first slide.
2020?
Yeah.
So that, the housing market just started really heating up
Right.
towards the end of 2020 into last year.
Right, yeah.
Right.
This just came out of a housing study that was done by
Right.
General Assembly, it was released
Yeah,
last week.
some of those numbers may be obsolete
Right,
already.
Right,
is
so
what I'm
that's what I
talking
say, I would ignore the number, just think about the relativity of our being number two, that we're an
Right.
expensive rural location
Yeah,
right now.
I think it's relative, no question. I mean, just from an order of magnitude, the story's compelling in and of itself.
Right,
Yes.
good. All right,
The
next
question
slide.
is, if we try to develop out more workforce housing, what
Yeah.
could we theoretically or physically do or develop out? And could we partner and do some kind of development and build workforce housing at the 3 to 350 range? Is that even physically possible in
Yeah,
this
so
market?
keep that thought, so I'm gonna run through sort of the demographic, and then when we get to the bottom, we're gonna talk about solutions. So
Okay.
keep that thought, that's great. So, why is workforce housing important? And I think it's really that thing down there at the bottom. We can't grow our business community if we can't attract workers. Jeff was saying that a minute ago, that he's gonna be exporting jobs if he can't get the jobs here. And so, that's sort of the main, that's really the focus of what we're really talking about, is that there is a tie between housing and the business community. Julian can't bring workers in. Tides In right now is having a problem getting their workers in. Tides In's getting ready to build 10 houses with 5 bedrooms each in it, so they can create 50 bedrooms, so they can start housing their own workers, because there is no, they can't bring the workers into the market that they need because they can't supply housing for them. So to solve the problem, they're getting ready to build 50 bedrooms.
Wow.
Yeah, so we know it's a problem. Next slide. So now we're getting into, Jason, what you were talking about, some of the solutions. Are you all impressed with my PowerPoint?
It just tells me that you didn't do it.
I did all of this.
I was sitting there thinking, I wonder who he hired to do that.
I'm impressed.
All right, next. So now the question is, this is what Jason was saying, how do we really incentivize workforce housing? Because the problem is, when you've got builders out there who are apartment builders or housing builders, the question is, why would someone risk investing here versus going to a more mature market? I mean, that's the problem we're facing is, we just did an apartment study. It's private information, so I can't talk about it too much because someone else did it, paid for it, but I got privy to it. Trying to look at what the demand for apartments were, and obviously there's demand. But talking to apartment developers that I know, and they're saying, yeah, I see that study, but I'm not too sure I want to come to Lancaster County and build apartments. It's just, I've got better opportunities in other markets with less risk. So that's that question about how do we really incentivize somebody to want to come here? And that's the issue. And I'm really beginning to bear down on it because I really would like to build some apartments, but it is a problem when you start
This
talking.
is where I come in with the old school property. We can come in with a public-private partnership to do a development there and create the kind of development for the type of people we want to recruit here.
Right.
So if you build it like, okay, we want to be the Silicon Valley of the East Coast, so we start building an environment that will attract young tech professionals here and try to get them here and start building that environment. And we can take that 350 acres and we can get a builder in here. We can build workforce housing. We can have sort of like the communities that they want. They live and work in the community. So they have restaurants, they have they have other businesses there, they build out the public park, so they have access to the water. And you create this whole sort of environment on that acreage of land, and we do that through a
This is
public-private.
the Good Luck Road type
Yeah,
of it,
we do this through a public-private partnership where we assume sort of the risk for the builder, and they provide the service.
Right, right.
You know, and Susan is sitting here, and what does it tell a developer? You know, it's a amount of risk anyhow. When you got somebody want to do something and come out, then they reading what's in the paper last week.
Right. Susan, why don't you tell people what happened last week that don't know?
Sure. We had a public hearing at our last council meeting, which was the 24th. And we had a parcel of land in Steptoe's district that is, I'm just saying, adjacent to the town park. It's not immediately abutting it, but it's across from the post office. It's a 4-acre parcel. And we have a person who's under consideration for purchasing that property. And part of the due diligence requires a zoning change from C1, which is what those parcels are currently C1 commercial, to R2, which is multifamily housing. And that particular stretch of property, I'm giving you this background because the context is important. Part of that stretch of property it's in what we call the Steptoe's Overlay District, which is an overlay over top of C1 zoning, and it tells you what you can do by right within C1, which is a mixed use by right. So commercial on the first floor, residential above. That's by right. The individual wanted to not do anything with a commercial slant to it, wanted to do residential only, multi-unit apartments, and came with a request for rezoning. It came with a positive recommendation from the Planning Commission. Council took it up in the public hearing. We had, I think, 3-4 people from the public speak. It was all negative for a host of reasons that probably aren't important, but the public response was negative to housing for everything from that's more traffic in town that we don't need, the location is wrong, and those people will be there. So it was a whole combination of things that were said publicly by citizens, and it's their right to do so. The conversation within council also raised a number of negative issues that were not germane to the discussion of do you want to rezone this or not. As a result, the request to approve it, the motion to approve, fell without a second. And there was no subsequent motion put on the table. So while they did not vote it down, they did not vote it up. And so that topic will most likely come back to council again. But the comments around the council table, to a degree, mirrored what the public public conversation was. Does that
Yeah.
does that help you?
Yeah,
without
well,
get-
I mean, I know the story, so.
I know, I'm just-
But what I'm sitting here thinking, hearing Jimmy, is it's hard for a developer away from here, anybody, sit there and know that knowledge. But why am I gonna take a risk to come in here, when I know even the council members are sitting there giving these negative comments. It's one thing here from the public, but it's another thing when you got council members, almost already saying no. Somebody just didn't have the courage to just vote it down. That's what happened. And because that's where they wanted to go. And we need workforce housing. It wasn't, when you start reading about, well, who's gonna rent it, those people, that kind of comment. And then, we know the rent was set at such that it's got to be professional to go in there to pay it.
Correct.
It was like $1,200 a month or
That's exactly
$1,400
right.
a month rent. So you kind of thinking, what do we want in this county?
Right.
What do we really want workforce housing? And I mean, this wasn't labeled workforce housing, but it certainly was going to help our young professionals, teachers and things like that. It was going, 2 teachers could go in there and pay $600 a piece and,
Well, this kind of brings up the notion too, that like the builders and you have to have this synergy together. It's just like they brought this proposal in with no synergy working with the council beforehand. And so, of course, it died, much like the thing up and lively for the Board of Supervisors, because they just throw this plan on you that they think you're going to approve, and there's been no synergy or no matching up with the comp plans or the actual visions of where the communities are going. Whereas if, like in the public access debate, when we just had places or ideas to build public access with no synergy with the communities that they were going in, they failed because they had a myriad of reasons of why they failed, but it wasn't just NIMBY. There's other issues there, but that's one of the driving forces. But we've got to get ahead of that, and that's how we do that with this sort of public-private partner synergy, where we groom the location and we vet these things out, and we have a messaging plan, and all this thing works together, so it just doesn't fly out on the councilman's or the Board of Supervisors' plate, and then people come in and voice and bark a bunch of negative things, and then
You
it
will have
gets-
NIMBY regardless, on any topic.
course.
NIMBY shows up every time.
But
How do you
you
respond
can
to
limit
that?
it, and you can work to combat it.
You can, and you should, and you
we've
should.
done
And
that
did-
as a model
yeah.
in Windmill Point, and
Right.
it's bearing fruit, but it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a concerted, continual effort to make it happen. And
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
there are always gonna be bitter people that are gonna be ugly and be against something, and will find any reason to back up their negative opinion, even if it's
Susan,
total
isn't that
BS.
area in the planned growth area? Or is it just outside it?
No, it's right in the middle of town. I mean, it's all,
So it's actually part of the county's planned growth?
It is planned-
I only brought
it
that
is a
up.
good, it
I'm
meets
just
all the
asking.
criteria. It meets all the criteria.
So it's not,
You know,
it's
Paul,
not
I
in the
didn't mean
county
to-
growth
to
area.
generate
it's in
this
the
much
town.
Yeah,
discussion.
and so,
Yeah, but it's not only just the town, it's also the county.
Sure.
It means the
Yeah.
county's.
See, it may have reached a different perspective if the builder had worked with the town and came in with sort of a business community development, where you have that sort of residential above and business opportunities below.
That would
Maybe the
have-
council would have approved, or.
It wouldn't have come before them. It would have been C1, by right, mixed use. We would have issued him a permit, he could have broke ground tomorrow.
See, I mean,
you
and
were
so,
having a
again, it
lesser
goes
zone.
back to that, working
You were
together
having a
and creating the
lesser
right
zoning going to
synergy.
R2 than a C1 with an overlay, right? I mean, it should have been that slam dunk.
You would have thought.
And how great would it have been
And
to
I,
have,
and I agree with
Can
Jason
we-
that
can
the
we-
worst,
Yep.
we always say the worst place to win a zoning case is at the zoning meeting.
Correct.
You have a responsibility to work it, to vet it and talk about it and work it ahead of time. And
Well, how
I don't
great-
think this developer did a really good job of
yeah,
prepping
hey,
up for the
hey,
meeting.
Jimmy, I understand that
Right.
was critically important, but
Right.
we
So-
are.
so
we
we'll
do
keep
have
going.
time. Yeah, and I agree with Bill's
Right.
comment there. I read it and I was appalled.
Yeah.
And I think public education is going to help. And I don't know if it would solve all the problems, but I would really love to get in front of that Kilmarnock Town Council with a presentation about what we're trying to do here at the county level.
Right.
And every town council.
I mean, well, here's another opportunity where the town council and the owners of that land can get together and sort of synergize together on how it can work and what can go there. And let's market a plan for that piece of acreage to sort of an RFP type of model. Okay, we can go out and we can do this together here.
Yeah.
I think there's ways to move these balls forward. It just got to work the right synergy.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
got to have the council that has the will.
Paul, a very quick comment.
Yes.
Some time ago in our earlier days of this committee, we didn't have quite this example of a dynamic that is unfortunate. But I do recall that, I do recall a discussion of what the committee's role might be. And it would seem to me that somewhere, one of our committees, perhaps is housing, we have to be able to help a developer who comes along, who brings money and ability to deliver something that is necessary for us. We've got to be able to help them understand where to engage the process. And then the process needs to be ready, with a packet and all of that, so that he or she, the developer, knows how to then move down this pathway. So this was not new. I don't recall that there was much difference between what I just heard and what we were discussing some time ago. And I think it concluded in our saying that the committee had a responsibility to be able to help developers and the business people engage the county in a very efficient and expedient way to move things along so that we don't miss the opportunity. What you don't want to have is a number of business people coming along ready to invest, and for one reason or another, it doesn't go well, whether it's their fault or something that the county hadn't thought of. There needs to be a way to engage the system correctly.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Well said.
And just one other thing, just to add to Julian's, and to reinforce what he said on a practical level. We had zero feedback that there was negativity coming. We did not see it at staff level. We had zero comments at the planning commission. We had zero phone calls about it being a problem. And so the conversation we've had internally is we should always expect the worst in some of these situations and have a plan to attempt to address it. And that's really all about the process. So we're going to change some things internally in terms of our process with council to prepare them in advance on when some of these issues come forward. Because frankly, we thought this was going to be a slam dunk, and I mean, I was totally shocked when people started coming in the room.
Yeah, particularly when planning gave it
Planning Commission gave it a full thumbs up.
Yeah. So I
Anyway.
think that what we hope will come out of this process, Paul, that we're working on here will be that we'll be able to articulate the need to the county, and the county can take the steps to sort of prepare for it. And that when we hire an economic developer officer, that he'll be able to do what Julian's talking about in terms of engaging somebody coming in and showing them the process.
And in the meantime, would you agree the communications committee needs to start paving, tilling some of the ground, so when the stuff you're mentioning comes down the pike, it's not like a new idea?
That's right.
Right.
Right. Good. All right, Glenn, let's go to that next slide then. Yeah, so this was just pointing out what we already know, that housing took off here like a bandit. That's all that's saying. And but again, the red line, it's talking about, apartments or that. We have no real apartments or anything being built. It's all single family. That's another thing that slide's telling us. Okay, Glenn. So traditionally, what do governments do to increase supply of workforce? They look at their zoning, their building codes, their streamlined permitting and fee waivers. Well, I sort of went through these, and I don't think that any of these are impediments to what we're talking about. Next slide, Glenn. Zoning regulations to maximize density requirements. So, we just don't have a zoning problem in this county. I think we've got the zoning. It's more of an economic chicken and egg problem with trying to incentivize somebody to come here and do something. So I don't think that the traditional methods of that urban areas, I think, look at, we don't have those problems. Next slide, Glenn. If people sort of agree with that, would you agree with that, Don?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. We actually have an R4 district that, has mixed use potential, all by right. It's already in place.
Yeah.
And Jimmy, I went through, I can't even remember who it was, it might have been the SBA, but remember that big checklist of economic development for rural counties? I went through that entire checklist with zoning at the town and zoning at the county, and there really wasn't any low-hanging fruit of stuff that we're not at least somewhere in the game on. So
I agree with
really,
that.
there were not serious problems in the zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I also, in that regard, I think there's probably hundreds of subdivisions that have been approved by previous boards of supervisors over the years that have never moved forward in any of their progress of being built or developed out.
Right.
So that's another piece, is to look at those and how we can work with those particular owners or builders to start to move those projects forward.
That project over there on the hospital road at the Kilmichael over there near you, Bill. What's that project called? I forget the name of it.
Grace Hill?
Grace Hill.
Grace Hill.
There it is, fully developed, just sitting there.
Yeah.
And can't get any traction. It's a problem.
Well, in those regards, it's much harder to get somebody who wants to go through the process to build a home. It's much easier to sell a home that's already built.
That's right. So anyway, I don't think when we look at it, at sort of zoning policies that I agree with her, but I don't think we have a problem. So we'll go to that next slide, Glenn. Streamlined permitting, I don't really think we have a real problem here. You know, I've got a builder who is States and Homes that's just starting to build homes at Hills Quarter. Broke last week on two homes. I asked them how long it would take to build these homes. They're going to be in that sort of 350 price range. I asked them the other day, I said, when you start your foundations, how long before the finished home is finished? They said 135 days.
Wow.
Yeah, so they
can turn them out.
They turn them out. And so one of the things that we need to make sure when we talk about open for business and encouraging and helping people, you know, I think that anything that the county can do to help them stay to that timeline with housing inspections and those types of things. We know the housing, but we need to show these builders that they can work in a profitable environment. So I think this is going to be important to make sure that we're helping states and or others coming in here. As Bill said, we got to sort of tee them up to show them that
We
we're
easy
working
to do
with
business
them.
with.
Yeah,
We easy
so-
to do business with.
Yeah, so we really need to make sure that we can help them or others stay to their economic timeline, and that, you know, that's gotta be a focus.
I don't think he had any problem.
No, he's been very happy. I questioned him about his relationship. They said they were worrying about it because they need such quick turnaround. They haven't had a problem yet, but they say, we know that in order for us to meet these timelines, that it's gonna strain the county to be able to get here and turn things around the way we need it done. So anyway, we just need to be focused to make sure we get these early adopters in here to have a good situation.
Well, I think he's had a pleasant experience so
Yeah,
far.
so far,
Well,
absolutely,
let
he's
me-
given
let me
high
ask-
marks.
Let me ask you something, because, you know, the comments we got from that gentleman on Fleece Bay, you know what I'm talking about. Is it a way that we can get the positive, you know, because this guy came in with a from what I read, he came in with an attitude that we was gonna, you know, we was dragging our feet, that, you know, we gonna run into this problem and all that. So can we turn that around with this and get, I don't know, get some kind of word out that, hey, you know, this guy make a statement, quote him in the paper, you know,
Yeah.
likes to kind of,
Yeah, I'd like to think we're gonna do an article against it.
Yeah, okay.
Where he started homes and what his target is, and we could make sure that he talks about how, he could say how well he's enjoying working with the county and how
yeah,
proactive
that's
they're
why,
being.
because we really got some slack that was unwarranted from this other.
Yeah.
Well, and just to add one quick comment, you know, we've got a new building official started in August, a new building inspector started last July, but they're doing well. They know their job. They're doing their job well. They've started having contractor meetings here every other month, and they have been well attended. I mean, I'm talking 20, 25 people coming in.
Wow.
And you know, they're telling them what they expect, so the word's getting out, and I know your particular builder, I think he's had a pleasant experience so far.
He said, I questioned the other day in advance of this meeting, he said things were going really well.
What's their marketing plan?
So they've got two people that they're moving here full-time. One of them is a marketing man that they're moving from another region who's already been successful with them in another region. They're moving him here to drive the marketing, and then they've got a full-time construction manager living here that they've relocated to the area. So they're really bringing in the people to drive the deal. I've given them the old pro shop that I was using as my office. I've given that to them as their sales center. I moved over in that little building next door. So they've just repainted it, power washed it, refurbished it, recarpeted it. I mean, all in a matter of a couple of days. There's no grass growing under this group. They are rolling.
So we probably need to get some flyers to them and find out how we can share, like, I'm thinking young families that really want to see the early childhood center and
Right.
know that I do believe in the marketing strategy, because
Yes.
I think it's helped our school division. I'm just waiting for the hopes that everyone else is gonna catch up with this county-wise, and we have a marketing plan for the county.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be very,
Yeah, I'll set up a meeting with
yeah,
their
yeah.
sales manager and you.
okay, Jimmy, I'm sure they'd be very happy to have some pre-sales too. But we're down to our final
Yeah, I'm
minutes
just
here,
about,
so.
I'm rolling. So let's go to that next slide. All right, next slide, I'm sorry. So the idea now is where can we find best practices? Who are other counties who have gone down this road already that can show us a roadmap? What funding program might be out there to assist us with planning grants or implementation? What agencies can provide that assistance? An example of others who have had success. So to that end, Susan helped me meet with Doug Jackson at the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development. We've got a meeting with our committee, our work group on, I think it's the 17th. And so we're getting ready to sit down with the Department of Housing and Community Development, and we're gonna have a Zoom meeting with them, their team and our team, and we're really gonna begin to focus on what's out there that can help us now that we know where we're headed. So that meeting is coming up shortly, and we'll be
Hey,
reporting
Jimmy, you
back.
had the 11th originally.
The 11th, it's the 11th, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
because I couldn't be
Thank you.
out there.
11th.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's,
It was
forget
the
date,
11th,
but
'cause I
anyway,
was
it's
gonna be
coming
out of
up,
town
and I'll
on
be
the
sending-
11th,
I think,
yeah.
if I haven't sent, I'll be sending everybody
Yeah.
that. I think we agreed on a date,
Yeah.
the 17th.
But
Yeah,
also,
17th.
you know, the thing that's very interesting is the Good Luck Road property.
Right.
And what Jason is saying, how can the county partner to create some housing there, maybe mixed-use housing and that type of thing? How do we market a developer? Is that, I guess it's the role of an economic director if we had one.
Right.
But to get that moving. But, you know, if the county is open to it, then we should be able to, you know, try to find a process, develop a process to get those
Right.
public-private partnerships moving.
And believe me, I'm in favor of trying to do something creative at Good Luck Road. What I want to make sure is that we're not biasing that piece of property, and we're not helping people like me who have already invested and got something going where they're saying, well, we don't need to help them, we're gonna help us try to sell this piece of property over at the county.
No,
There's
yeah,
gotta be
I wasn't
some-
talking about you, I was talking
Yeah.
about a process.
I understand, but
Yeah.
in that process, it's gotta be sort of open, but I think there is a unique niche for the Good Luck property, and I'm looking forward to, I'm working on some stuff to come back on RFP too, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a good opportunity. It's right next to the town.
Oh, it's
sort of-
perfect.
I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to
With the
grow
park and all that.
right on the water there and to create this sort of, as you
Right.
say, build it, they will come.
Right.
But I think, Jimmy, once we can identify best practices and how to do it, there's probably multiple parcels that could be considered for public-private partnerships.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, there's multiple. I mean, there's some private stuff in Kilmarnock that the owner would like a public-private partnership, but their definition of that is you, the public, will buy it from me at full price, and I will be the private developer. But I think once we can identify kind of what that example is and what that packaging could look like, we could do that uniformly on a ton of stuff.
Yeah, actually, the Good Luck Road exercise is a good way of sort of a real, it's always easier to put more meat on the bone when you got a real-world example that you're working on. I think we'll come out of that with a good public-private partnership framework of how that might work, so I'm looking forward to that.
I wouldn't forget about the hopes are in a year that we will be moving out of the primary school. I wouldn't forget that property either.
Well, the problem with the primary school property, just to say this, it lacks in any market appeal. You've got saturated drain fields, you've got demo, it's not a very attractive location. I think the Good Luck Road, for a private property, it's got more mojo. I think to try to force a need up there on a subpar piece of property is probably not a good place to be starting off. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know what the future of that property holds, but the building itself is not in that great a condition. The high school, I think, has more potential uses down the road than,
County or
I mean,
business.
Right.
in my opinion, the primary school needs to be bulldozed and turned into farmland, and because the building is so far gone, it's one of those things that like in other areas, they have these derelict school buildings that are just falling down, but still have to be maintained and cost stuff, so some of these properties like this, in my opinion, it would be better to just get rid of them at whatever. Who will take them for whatever and then put them on the tax rolls.
Paul, I know we're running out of time because others need to speak, so I'm gonna, 2 minutes, I'm gonna wrap it up. All right, let's just, so we've got a big meeting coming up that will help us fill in some of these gaps. Next slide. Anyway, there are different types of housing programs, we don't need to get into that yet. Next one. You know, There is the enterprise zone, the opportunity zone. I'll be honest, I've looked at both of them. I don't think there's anything to them. They sound great on paper, but I've yet to figure out how they really help us in the real world. But we'll get into that when we get into things. Community block grant may be something that's for the public-private partnership. We'll be talking about that more. Next slide. All right, we're having a meeting with the DHC, and they're spending $100 million a year in community housing. So I'm looking forward to that meeting. We're looking forward to that meeting. Next slide. This House Bill 854 was a big, and it's a really well-written study that just came out, was released last week. And so I think that the House bill will sort of tee up the state's agenda. And so it's important to look at these things because it sort of tell you where the state's headed. I've been studying this, and we'll be looking at that on our committee and more. Next slide.
That is if they actually do what they study.
There you go. That's right. Next slide. This was coming out of that report. We'll talk about this later. Next slide. This was just another slide that talked about that Jeff talked about earlier. Another slide that reinforces that we're probably well advantaged to get focused on. Next slide. UVA, I think, can help us through the Weldon School. We'll be looking at them for research analysis and stuff, and we'll do that after we have the meeting with the Department of Housing and Community Development. Next slide. And then there are other examples out there outside of the state. Hilton Head, I was looking at some of the things they're doing down there. So I think there are a lot of people out there doing stuff that we'll put some meat on the bone with. So next slide, I think we're done. So if anybody's got any other questions or ideas, I'll go ahead, Paul, and finish my report.
I have one more question.
Yeah,
When Bay Aging does take over Mercer Place,
yes.
are there funds available to expand one more building there for professional work? Under the same, because what we're having now is we have teachers from Northumberland, teachers from Middlesex,
Right.
because none of them have. So just a question, is there a possibility of investment from them?
That possibility exists. So Bay Aging is I think everybody knows, is the Mercer Place, because it was one-off. They were having a problem running it as a one-off, so they've come to us and asked Bay Aging if we could take them over, because we've got the janitors and the bookkeeping and all those sorts of stuff. We have 11 apartment projects. So what we told Mercer Place, and we represented to the county and the towns, where we were not going to change the mission. We weren't turning it into elderly housing. It was going to stay workforce related, schools related. And yes, I think we can look at trying to build out that last building, but it's going to take some tax credit work and all that sort of stuff to try to figure out how we make the financials work. Thank you, Paul. So our work in progress, and we'll be back to you, but we think we're beginning to articulate the issues.
Thank you, that's exciting. What's really exciting to me is you got a contractor that's actually working
Right.
in a price range that may be able to help some of the existing workforce, like his issues. And you know, with surrounding counties having the same problem, your guy may be able to pre-sell a number of those properties.
Right.
And it could be a real benefit.
And Ryan
if
Holmes
that-
over in Gloucester has done a successful project
Yeah.
over there, and
Yeah,
they've
at
been
the
approached.
courthouse.
They've been
Yeah.
approaching me. They want, but I'm staying with this building
Right,
I'm with.
right.
So there is interest. So hopefully we're going to start getting some solutions here. Thanks.
Okay, we're down to our last two strategies, and the next one is age-appropriate recreation, and Jason had that committee, and there is a report from Jason that I gave you. I hand-wrote Recreation Committee on the top of that. And Jason, you want to go ahead and explain your...
Yeah, so we mainly focus on the Recreation Committee about public access and some of the sites that the county owns and developing those out, such as the one was the Good Luck Road property. So we looking at that, I think, is looking at a public-private partnership, not only for housing potentials, but also to build a park there along the waterfront on that land that we own. We're in the process of working on the Taylor Creek property that was given to us years ago from the Tides Inn, so there's work progressing on that project. I've been in works with Windmill Point Marina and the property owners down there to develop out a public fishing pier and access at that, which has long been a part of our comp plan. We have development going on at the Thomas Creek Landing that we currently own. Other potential, we're talking about the repurposing of the old school sites. You mentioned the Brookvale School, but we also potentially down the line have the high school site as we develop the new school complex. Also, we have the Tri-Way Trail going, so continue to work that issue out, and that will be a huge benefit to the towns and the community, as well as recreation, and it's something else that we can promote and market. And the goal is to continue also to grow in our community partnerships that we currently have with the YMCA, Dreamfields, and Boys and Girls Club. Continue to strengthen those partnerships and look to see what types of programs that we can grow out of those, as well as potentially down the line, once we have some of these properties developed out, looking for the county to hire or have its own sort of recreational development personnel.
Yeah,
So that's kind of what our main focus was, to look at the sites that we have and to focus on how we can develop those sites out to basically fit into the mission of the overall
right.
work of this committee.
Yeah, and I also hand wrote some things, some thoughts that I had after reading your paper, because when we get back, and I think this is going to be part of our survey questions, is what type of activities are young families looking for their children?
Right.
And do we have any gaps in our programming? And that's why I've had people feedback, well, we don't have a skateboard park. My kids love BMX trails, you know, biking trails. There's no Little League football program. You know, there's items like that I believe it would be good to have a meeting with all our partners that you mentioned, Dreamfields, the Boys and Girls Club, and see if there's any interest or ability in those partners to start looking at some of these needs.
Paul, in terms of the trail, we've been looking at activity nodes that we could add onto the trail, and Susan and I had a preliminary conversation. For example, right behind the town park was the old dump. I know most of y'all don't remember that, but I remember it was that's where the county dump was right behind this town park. You came through that townhouse project on the bypass road to get to the dump. So as Susan so articulately pointed out, is that's all moguled up. You can't really use it for anything else. That'd be a great place to build a little BMX bike skate park, because you can't use it for anything else. So that could be a little node behind the state park that we could add to the trail. For a long time, I've been wanting to do something between the YMCA and the hospital. The hospital owns all of the property that the Y is on. I know you know this.
Yeah.
And the free health clinic's on. That's all owned by the hospital. It comes in behind the rescue squad. It's a contiguous piece of property. We're looking at maybe building a fitness trail in there, one of those stations where you can do sit-ups and push-ups and all that little circuit in there. It'd be great for rehab. It'd be great for hospital employees. It'd be great for outdoor activities by the Y. Another little node of activity coming off of the trail. So we're looking at a variety of these types of things that you were talking about, trying to figure out how we juice up the trail by encouraging these other things to get built out along the trail. So we're beginning to identify those types of things. Little fishing thing down at Fisher's Pond as you come into Irvington, you know, for kids. Just all those types of things that could add to what Jason's committee's working on in terms of recreation. Jason and I are in contact.
We discussed when our athletic complex is out, making sure there are restrooms to the outside of that athletic complex, so for the trail, so people have access to restrooms.
There you go.
We're even trying to think globally what that looks like as far as connecting with this.
That's great.
One of the things that you brought, just made me remember, I was gonna ask you about it. When that trail comes past the school, will you have access to the track?
Yes.
Okay.
The goal is to actually build it far enough away to where it's open for folks to walk all day.
Yeah,
Unless the
just
school's
when
in
the
use.
trail can't pass, people
So-
could jump off. You know.
Right.
The goal is to make it a community center, which even if we were to shut the gate at night, which we probably would, like at 10 o'clock when the custodians leave in the restrooms, you know, or even on the weekends, we'll get someone to open those restrooms on the outside of the wall. That way, if they're on the trail where they're walking or running, they'll have access.
Yeah, we don't see the trail open at night, so that shouldn't be much of an issue, so, yeah. And just to say this, in the site that we just closed yesterday with the county for the school site, we did delineate a trail path coming through on that plat. So there is a contiguous trail right now that the county's bought into on that plat. Good. Thanks, Glenn, Don, for running through those slides.
Paul, real
Awesome.
quickly, just, Jason, just I think for your committee, just so we don't lose sight of it, because none of the other committees would do that. As far as attraction and retention, I think the arts has to be in there somewhere. So like, we're lucky we have Rappahannock Foundation for the Arts, but there's some people moving here, like, I hear all the time, why are you retiring to Williamsburg? Oh, there's so much that goes on around William and Mary that we can attend. That is, like, as much as the hospital is an attraction, having something to do is an attraction. So I think the art somehow needs to be in there. And I know it's sort of business related, but I think, restaurants, microbreweries, all that stuff, like a little sizzle in the recreation side helps sell an area too. So I think, not to spend, I think the ones y'all are putting your effort on are the most important ones, but just I think they need to be a PS on the plan, in my opinion.
I think the arts are important too, and that's another node that we're working on right now. I've been for years, I'm trying to figure out how to build a sculpture garden as an amenity within my project at the old golf course. And that would be a node that comes off the trail, so it'd be sort of another art-centric sort of activity.
So would there be a nude statue of Jimmy Carter?
Be me in a Speedo.
I can see the people coming from far and wide.
Keep that out of the minutes.
Snowman would be bad enough. But it would leave another
Bill
place.
Lee is already voted against that.
Yeah, Bill's got thumbs down on that one.
Jason,
You trying to attract people to the
Sorry.
All right.
Can
All
I
right.
put one plug in?
Yes.
For this committee? From a school perspective and young children, and it's an opinion of some folks talked to and even connected to other organizations, is there a way that we can get a Parks and Rec program back for county? That way there's actually someone whose job it is to organize all these activities that go along with the football, that go along with the, helping organize this stuff. And the reason I'm asking that is there's no vertical alignment with this stuff. The Boys and Girls Club has some programs, the Y has some, the school has some, but it's disorganized.
Yeah, not connected in any way.
So is that a conversation that's come up with that group, or?
I mean, yeah,
Did
it
I
was,
miss that
I mean,
part
it
of
was established into this plan a little bit and talked about, and it, maybe not immediately, but certainly it was looked at more longer range than immediate, but I can see where you're coming from, and the need is almost immediate now too, to synergize these programs together.
I've just had a bunch of people approach me and I'm like, well, some of these aren't the school.
And it kind of links back to what you're saying about the arts program, but it also links linking some of together the organizations and that we have available here as part of opportunities to get involved in the community, like the Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club, and all these different opportunities like that, the arts, the club, animal welfare, all these different opportunities for people to get involved in that nobody really necessarily knows about. If we can bring those sort of pieces together too, and have a market plan, or at least somewhere where some people can go and say, hey, well, these are all things that I can get involved in.
Yeah,
I equate it to the school division, when you have to do a report for the state, and we have new SOQ. So we have all these great things going on, but they're not showcased. They're not really written down until you pull them into, and then you have no one organizing it, making sure you're still moving forward with those. And I just feel like we're missing that. But again, I'm going back to the focus for this group, I thought was 20 to 40. And I mean,
20 to 55.
20 to 55?
Yes.
I thought that was huge, that we need a Parks and Rec program, or at least some organization between all the groups.
Well, maybe a county-appointed youth activities director that coordinates all the programs with the different providing agencies and that looks to fill in the gaps instead of a whole blown-out, fully blown Parks and Rec department at this time, because that's expensive to begin with. But I do believe there needs to be some coordination, because I've looked at it myself and said, if we need to get these people together, and what if no one wants to take on a BMX park or just
Little league
youth football?
See, that's what happened.
Youth
That fell by
football.
the wayside.
Yeah.
Because,
But if
Right.
you have someone, that's their job.
Right,
That,
yeah.
I mean, if you don't want to do your job, that's fine, we'll get someone else. But that's the reason I think it's important, because this community is great at being dependent on volunteers. But when someone chooses they don't want to do something, they just walk away and it disappears.
Yeah.
And football is a huge one, because that approach is constant, but it's not something you do as a school division, because we could do a middle school football program, but it has nothing to do with the Little League.
Yeah.
So-
So, Jason, what is your next step with your committee?
I don't know that we've moved to the next step, but I mean, I think the next steps are to add this pieces that were talked about today and continue to flush out the deadlines and goal timelines, I think, of the
Okay.
things that we do have on our plan.
Awesome, good. All right, so we got about 8 minutes left. The last committee, which I think is from almost 2 hours worth of discussions today, is really, really important, and that's the Public Relations and Communications Committee. And Joanna Carrington is here because she is on that committee member, and right after we conclude this meeting, we're going to go into our subcommittee meeting on that. But what we have been talking about, and you'll see on your notes page under education, it highlights the meeting that we had. We need to communicate the work of the group to garner support and reduce speculation about what's happening. There's enough information out there now that was published on the front page of the Rappahannock Record a few months ago that I'm starting to get some questions, and you know, I had one person talking to me about, oh, when you're bringing in smokestack industry, you know, and all this other stuff. So we need to get a vibrant communications program out there. I think that good communications will help community understanding of the issues and how the issues today are impacting their quality of life right now. Okay, they may not realize it, but there is a direct impact. We also believe that that it could be instrumental as we get in front of different groups in fostering some of the private-public partnerships, and also maybe entrepreneurial investment when they see what we're trying to accomplish. And just as I use as a reference here, such as the housing construction startup in Hills Quarter. And Joanna has provided in your packet a talking points for the long-range strategic plan. These are all draft forms, and we're going to be refining them in the next hour or two. So my intent is, as we get better definition, that I will send out a email with the revised copies. And you know, she's as she said, is geared towards local business, religious leaders, school, community organization. It's mainly a one-on-one or a few people conversation. What I've been working on is the presentation that you see in front of you that it was circulated just the other day. And I'll just go through a couple of, this is designed like for a Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce, Town Council, that kind of thing. The background, why the committee was formed, referencing the County Board of Supervisors strategic plan that the Citizens Business Relations Advisory Committee came out of that and was appointed. And what one of our responsibilities is to create this 2035 strategic plan. And that we've done some work on SWOT analysis. Major threat that we identified was the decline of the 20 to 55-year-old population, that we're looking at multiple strategies to help create, rebuild our working class population. And I will go further into saying, well, here's the committee that's working on it. This is our vision that's been approved by the Board of Supervisors and some of the demographics. So that's what follows. The vision that we've all agreed upon. I love Julian's tagline, Lancaster County, a highly desirable place to live, work, and play. And I think we need to start marketing that. The county demographics slide that we presented that really shows the heart of the issue, our initiative, and then the rationale. To me, this is one of the biggest talking points, and any other item that we want to put in this rationale statement for what we're doing, I think is only going to be beneficial. And I want to talk to the committee about that today. And then we talk about the strategies that we've identified. That's the slide that we have been working off of, item number 6, our 6th strategy, public education. We've talked about every one of them so far today, and this is the last one. I am thrilled that we have reports from every one of our strategy committees. I think that's really, really good. I know everyone's been really busy, and we need to continue our work if we're going to get a finalized plan in front of the Board of Supervisors by mid-year. In addition to my communications, I have also had one-on-one conversations with the 2 new supervisors, okay? And they have both been presented with our working product, the slide deck along. And so I think both Bill and Craig have been briefed adequately on it, and I'm gearing up to talk to Bill Smith a little bit more about it too. So I think we have a great Board of Supervisors now that can get behind everything that we're doing. So we talk about the strategies, and as Susan said earlier today, like this fiber to every household, we need to be promoting that, right? We need to be talking about what the housing market is going to be doing. Economic development is a priority at the county level. The education piece with the dynamic school system, workforce development, recreation, as we talked about, just finished talking about, and then creating a business-friendly environment. I'm going back and forth. I'm looping actually here. So how can we help? So if you're in front of a group and we go through this presentation and they're engaged, like the Rotary Club, first question they ask, well, how can we help? So we want to have an answer. The county can't do it alone. The county can provide some of the framework, but in order for us to accomplish what we need to do, we need our citizens working with us. And they can, if we can get the majority of our citizens working with us, there's no end to what we can do in this county. Focus groups to discuss, so I'm saying we need people to be on focus groups to discuss the issues that are being held. I got to rephrase that. Bring forward your ideas and suggestions to committee members. Public-private partnerships will be essential. Come forward with business venture ideas. Be active supporting new growth opportunities with the Board of Supervisors and town councils, right? All right. So this is sort of a framework that I'm thinking about to get in front of, like the Chamber and the Rotary and the town councils. And it's just really rough right now. And our committee is going to be trying to refine this because I see an urgency of us getting our message out and maybe getting more support for a multi-unit apartment complex in Kilmarnock that really needs to happen. There's no question about the urgency of that happening, but yet we have a
Are
group.
we at a stage where if some of us are having meetings, that we should ask this committee to come and support? Had I known, not that we can do anything, but I think, are we at a point where we're going to do that? Do you know what I mean?
I think after this committee meeting, we should have a pretty good framework, and we'll create a little speakers bureau among our committee. And yes, I've been talking to the Rotary Club a couple of people at the Rotary Club, they would like us to present something in the next couple of weeks. So we need to get this refined rather quickly.
Okay, well, you know, speaking like the housing, but then the new school, those things are coming, so.
Right.
Are we at a point where are we supporting that, or do we have something else?
What do you mean? What do you mean, Dan? Are we supporting it? We're definitely supporting it. You know that.
Well, we're talking about housing and how dire it is, and Susan didn't know, but wouldn't it have been nice if this committee was there to support or say something
Yes.
positive?
Right.
We just didn't know, so I think that's
Right.
what I'm asking is.
Yeah.
Have we reached a point where we can all go out and be supportive of everyone, the community's efforts to push this forward, or this committee's efforts? Or are we still in the background working?
I think the last meeting that we had, I don't know if you were here or not, we said we
Yeah, I mean-
needed to go forward.
I think what he's basically saying is that if the committee members know about particular projects that back up our mission now, should we not be going out and speaking in behalf of those things, whether it's going to the town council meetings and saying, putting up positive representation for such projects, not just so they hear negative things. And I think that's what, Dan, I think that's basically what you were trying to say.
Yes, exactly.
The only thing I would ask, and I.
Paul, this is Roy. Can I
Yes.
say something?
Yes, Roy, please.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've got to get into the terminal. You were talking about focus groups, and I think, and Jimmy can weigh in on this, there's one group that can really help us with all the questions we ask because they get all the questions from their clients, and that's the realtors. Perhaps if we had maybe Carter and Company or Bragg and Company, Isabel Horsley, and maybe a couple companies that are in District 1 and 2, what their clients are looking for. Because then you have a huge group that can support all the questions that we're asking. And also maybe ask Ann Paparello to be in on that meetings because she can give you what the business people are looking for also, questions she gets. So just as a thought, maybe another focus group with realtors or the chamber.
Yeah, that, we actually discussed the realtors one. We didn't express the chamber, but that's a really good one too.
Okay,
Yes.
I've got to sign out because I've got to get in. Otherwise, there's an
All right.
airplane that might leave.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
Have a great trip, Roy.
Safe
Thank
travels,
you.
Roy.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Julian, do you have any comments? We're at the end of the road here right now.
The only comment I have is the bigger picture and the need to keep that in the front of everyone's mind. There's so much interconnectivity between all of these various components that I think that the public needs to understand a message that there has to be improvements made in how we attract businesses. There has to be affordable housing. You know, all these things don't work by themselves. They work in harmony with one another. And I fear that that part of the message might be lost. So I would ask in whatever way you think we can, that we choose the right words, we speak those right words to the right people in the right setting in such a compelling way that they get it.
I agree with you 100%, and I know that Jeff has got a comment.
Yeah, I guess, Paul, I'm not really a committee person, but I think we need a little more structure around that. I think, like, for instance, the committee reports, pick one. Like, I mean, the only reason I know some of these is because I'm serving on 3 of those committees too.
Right.
In addition to this, I think we need to broaden the committees
Yeah,
for
which
people
we're
that are
talking
not in
about.
this room. And every committee chair, we should have a formal committee chair for each, which I think we do. And we should have like a formal/semi-formal roster of who's serving on that. So like, if I run across somebody who's on the recreation committee, I know they're on the team. I'm like, oh, you're
Yeah.
on the team. And so I think if we broaden that, you know, we're building in constituents as part of the process. That would help. And I do think, like I mentioned before, this committee, I think we need to coordinate referrals between the committees, like the synergies, until they naturally start happening. And I think we need to develop a timeline of actionable steps by committee.
Right, just like Jason has done in his report.
Right.
I agree. Now, on the other side of it, I've been, we've all been working as volunteers, and I've been trying to coordinate all this as a volunteer and try to keep all these committee notes and everything else.
Yep.
I really could use some help.
Yeah. You should not
To do-
serve on, you should not serve on any subcommittee.
Oh, well,
You should serve as head of this committee, period, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think each of us maybe should take one committee that we're on as a liaison, and then have those committees run themselves with their own minutes and everything.
yes, and we do need to have more formal minutes.
Right.
I tried to prepare these, and any new member of a committee, I tried to identify.
This is
them.
great. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of work, though. This is great.
Yeah, but we've got, so you're talking about a little bit more formal structure as well.
And
Yeah.
distribute it.
Yeah.
Share
and
the wealth.
distributive,
Yeah.
and yes. Yes, so no, I totally agree with that, and we just need to do it. And I was hoping if we had an economic development director on site, that would really help with that kind of administrative help.
Right. Amen. That's where we end up.
Yeah, yeah.
But Don's
Jeff-
looking for us to help
Jeff's,
put together the job description. You know, it's sort of the chicken or the egg right now.
Susan and Paul and I will get together.
Yeah, we got to do that in the next week, guys. Really, if we can do it. I know Susan's shaking her head. Even if I have to get you in your bed at night to do that.
I didn't,
Oh, I think we need we need a lawyer in the room now.
I mean,
But Paul,
only your
to
brain.
Jeff's point,
It's your brain.
Julian,
Yes.
Paul, to Jeff's point, to make those adjustments with the heads of the committees, et cetera, in the way that that's going to bring greater clarity as we start to look at finalizing what the committee's product's going to be. So that it's going to be very important. I agree with him that gets done quickly.
Okay, Julian, thank you. All right.
Hey, Paul, just one update.
Yes.
Since this is such a distinguished group of community leaders, the hospital, I always say the hospital, we know that's a critical piece of infrastructure. We have met our $15 million goal to pay for the renovations.
Awesome.
And,
Good job.
And it's been, the outpouring support's been amazing, and we're actually going to expand it now. I said it's analogous to buying a new dress. Now you need shoes and a pocketbook. So we're going to go ahead and fix up.
It had to be a female
It
reference,
had to
didn't
be a
it?
female reference, growing up with 7 sisters. So we're working on the cancer center, the courtyard, doing some renovations of the room. So we're getting ready to add on. We're going to keep riding this success some more. So
Okay.
that's all.
Awesome
That's
report.
going well.
great.
Julian, before you leave, can I steal your tagline to start putting in my advertisements? A highly desirable place to live, work, and play? Are we allowed to start using that? That can go on our websites and our communications.
Has he trademarked it?
It's trademarked. You got to send him a check.
Well, that's why I ask him in front of everyone.
Well, Dan was thinking the same thing. I was gonna say something to Don and Glenn about that. Shouldn't we be scrolling that across on our website?
I'm actually gonna put a footer in all my communication too. I mean, I was actually being serious, but I'm serious on this marketing stuff.
Yeah.
We're turning up everything
No,
we
I
can.
was, when he read it, I was.
But if this
you know,
is
we
where
should
we
run
all
that on-
are and Julian's
on our
okay with
website.
us using it, then, I'd love to start adding it to stuff.
Julian, you okay with that?
Yeah, it belongs to the committee.
All right. Awesome.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's start with it. Okay, let's try to get our committee heads together and moving along with each one of these projects and try to